Have you ever wondered how life began on our planet? Approximately 4 billion years ago, to a time when Earth looked nothing like it does today. Picture a world with no trees, no animals, and no blue skies, just vast oceans under a reddish-orange atmosphere where something remarkable was about to unfold. The term primordial soup might sound like something from a science fiction story, but it's actually a scientific concept that helps us understand how life may have originated on Earth. This soup wasn't the kind you'd want to eat. It was a rich mixture of organic compounds dissolved in the early Earth's oceans. But what exactly made up this primordial soup? The main ingredients were surprisingly simple: water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen. These basic chemicals were present in Earth's early atmosphere and oceans. The energy from various sources, lightning strikes, volcanic activity, and ultraviolet radiation from the sun, caused these simple molecules to interact and combine into more complex organic compounds. One of the most fascinating aspects of the primordial soup was the formation of amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. In 1953, scientists Stanley Miller and Harold Urey demonstrated this process in their famous experiment. They created a sealed environment containing the chemicals thought to be present in Earth's early atmosphere and introduced electrical sparks to simulate lightning. After just a week, they discovered that amino acids had formed spontaneously. This groundbreaking experiment showed how the basic ingredients for life could have formed naturally in Earth's primitive conditions. The primordial soup wasn't static, it was a dynamic environment where chemical reactions were constantly occurring. Think of it as a giant chemical laboratory where countless experiments were running simultaneously. Some of these reactions produced simple sugars, while others created fatty acids, the components that would later form cell membranes. But why were Earth's early oceans so special? Unlike today's oceans, they were rich in dissolved minerals and metals that acted as catalysts, speeding up chemical reactions. The absence of oxygen in the atmosphere meant that these organic compounds could persist without being broken down through oxidation. This allowed them to accumulate and interact over long periods, increasing the chances of more complex molecules forming. The temperature of these ancient oceans also played a crucial role. Many scientists believe that the early Earth was warmer than it is today, which would have helped speed up chemical reactions. The heat from volcanic activity and impacts from space objects kept the oceans at temperatures that were ideal for organic chemistry to occur. Another important factor was time, lots of it. These chemical reactions weren't happening over days or years, but over millions of years. This gave countless opportunities for different molecules to form and interact in new ways. It's like having an infinite number of attempts to solve a complex puzzle, where each attempt brings you closer to the solution. The concentration of these organic compounds was also significant. In shallow pools near volcanic regions or in tidal areas, the water would periodically evaporate, concentrating the organic molecules and making it more likely for them to interact and form more complex structures. These areas might have been particularly important in the journey from simple chemicals to the first life forms. What makes the primordial soup theory so compelling is that it explains how complex organic molecules could have formed from simple ingredients through natural processes. We now know that many of the basic building blocks of life can form spontaneously under the right conditions. This doesn't mean we fully understand how life began, but it gives us important clues about the chemical foundations that made life possible. The legacy of the primordial soup continues to influence our understanding of life's origins. When scientists search for potential life on other planets, they often look for conditions similar to Earth's early environment. Could other worlds have their own versions of the primordial soup? This question drives much of our current space exploration and research into the origins of life. As we conclude this act, we're left with a picture of Earth's early oceans as vast chemical laboratories where the ingredients for life were slowly coming together. The primordial soup represents the first chapter in life's story, setting the stage for the incredible complexity of life as we know it today. What would emerge from this soup of organic compounds? How would these simple molecules organize themselves into the first living cells? These questions lead us into the next fascinating chapter of life's origin story. Around 3.5 billion years ago, our planet witnessed one of the most revolutionary developments in its history. the emergence of photosynthesis. But what exactly happened during this crucial period that would forever change Earth's destiny? Let's explore this fascinating chapter in our planet's story. Before we dive in, imagine our planet's oceans filled with primitive bacteria floating in waters that would be completely alien to us today. These ancient seas hosted the first pioneers of photosynthesis, tiny single-celled organisms called cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae. But what made these microscopic life forms so special? These remarkable organisms developed something unprecedented: the ability to harness energy from sunlight and convert it into food, while releasing oxygen as a byproduct. This process, which we now call photosynthesis, was nothing short of revolutionary. Think about it, before this moment, no living thing on Earth could produce its own food using sunlight. Every organism relied on chemical energy from the environment to survive. The process these ancient bacteria developed was surprisingly similar to what plants use today. They would capture sunlight using specialized molecules called chlorophyll, giving them their characteristic blue-green color, use this energy to split water molecules, and combine carbon dioxide with the resulting hydrogen to make sugar. The leftover oxygen, that was released into the environment as waste. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. This oxygen waste product would gradually accumulate to transform Earth's atmosphere completely. How significant was this change? The oxygen levels in Earth's early atmosphere were less than 0.1% of what they are today. Over millions of years, these photosynthetic bacteria worked tirelessly, gradually increasing atmospheric oxygen levels. This period, known as the Great Oxidation Event, GOE, began around 2.4 billion years ago. Have you ever wondered what happens when you leave an iron nail exposed to air? It rusts, right? That's exactly what happened to Earth's abundant iron during this time. The newly produced oxygen reacted with iron in the oceans, creating massive deposits of iron oxide, essentially rust. We can still find evidence of this today in the form of banded iron formations, ancient layered rocks that serve as silent witnesses to this tremendous transformation. But this oxygen revolution wasn't without its casualties. For the majority of life forms at that time, oxygen was highly toxic. These anaerobic organisms, creatures that lived without oxygen, faced what scientists call the oxygen catastrophe, the first major extinction event in Earth's history. Can you imagine? The very gas we depend on for life was once a deadly poison to most of Earth's inhabitants. However, this crisis also spurred innovation in the living world. Some organisms developed ways to protect themselves from oxygen's harmful effects, while others evolved to use this abundant new gas for energy production through cellular respiration. This adaptation would prove crucial for the development of more complex life forms later on. The oxygen produced by these ancient bacteria didn't just stay in the atmosphere, some of it formed ozone, O3, in the upper atmosphere. This ozone layer became Earth's natural sunscreen, protecting future life from harmful ultraviolet radiation and making it possible for life to eventually colonize land. The impact of these ancient photosynthetic bacteria extends far beyond their time. Every breath you take contains oxygen that exists because of this innovation. The plants that provide our food use essentially the same photosynthetic process that these bacteria pioneered. Even the fossil fuels we use today are largely the result of ancient photosynthetic organisms that captured and stored solar energy millions of years ago. Consider this. These microscopic organisms changed the very chemistry of our planet, created conditions that would allow for the evolution of complex life, and established the oxygen-rich atmosphere we depend on today. All of this from tiny bacteria that found a way to eat sunlight and exhale oxygen. The legacy of these ancient innovators continues today. Modern cyanobacteria still play crucial roles in Earth's ecosystems, particularly in our oceans where they produce a significant portion of the oxygen we breathe. They remind us that some of the most important revolutions in Earth's history came from the smallest of organisms. This chapter in Earth's history teaches us an important lesson. Major changes often start small, but can have far-reaching consequences. The next time you take a deep breath, remember that you're experiencing the end result of a process that began billions of years ago with some remarkable bacteria that changed our world forever. The story of Earth's first breath shows us how life can not only adapt to its environment, but also fundamentally change it. What other revolutionary innovations might be happening in the microscopic world today? And how might they shape the future of our planet? Have you ever wondered why life on Earth suddenly became so diverse and complex after billions of years of relative simplicity? The answer lies in one of the most remarkable events in our planet's history, the Cambrian explosion. This extraordinary period, occurring approximately 541 million years ago, marked a pivotal turning point in the evolution of life on Earth. Let's start by understanding what makes the Cambrian explosion so special. Before this period, most life forms were simple, soft-bodied organisms that rarely left fossils behind. But then, something extraordinary happened. In what scientists consider a relatively short span of geological time, just 25 million years, an incredible burst of animal diversity emerged. This wasn't just a small change, it was a biological revolution that gave rise to most of the major animal body plans we see today. But what exactly exploded during the Cambrian explosion? It wasn't an actual explosion, of course, but rather a rapid increase in the diversity of animal life. During this time, we see the first appearance of many animal groups that would become familiar to us today. Think of creatures with hard shells, jointed legs, and sophisticated sensory systems. The oceans became filled with trilobites, which were arthropods similar to modern-day horseshoe crabs. We also see the emergence of creatures like Anomalocaris, one of the first large predators, and Pikaia, which is believed to be one of our earliest chordate ancestors. The evidence for this explosion comes primarily from fossil deposits found around the world. The most famous of these is the Burgess Shale in Canada, which preserves detailed impressions of soft-bodied creatures that normally wouldn't fossilize. These fossils tell us an incredible story of innovation in body design and animal behavior. What made this rapid diversification possible? Several factors worked together. First, the oxygen levels in Earth's atmosphere and oceans had reached levels high enough to support more complex life forms, thanks to the work of photosynthetic organisms from the previous period. Second, the development of hard parts like shells and exoskeletons provided better protection and support for larger bodies. Third, the evolution of predation created an evolutionary arms race, driving the development of new defensive structures and strategies. One of the most significant innovations during this time was the development of vision. The first complex eyes evolved during the Cambrian explosion, revolutionizing how animals interacted with their environment. Imagine a world where, for the first time, creatures could actively see and hunt their prey, or spot and escape from predators. This development alone triggered a cascade of evolutionary adaptations. The Cambrian explosion also saw the emergence of new ecological relationships. For the first time, we see clear evidence of predator-prey relationships, with some animals developing specialized hunting strategies, while others evolved defensive mechanisms. This led to the establishment of the first complex food webs, similar to what we see in modern marine ecosystems. Another fascinating aspect of this period was the development of new ways of moving. Animals evolved the ability to swim more efficiently, crawl along the seafloor, and even burrow into sediments. This opened up new ecological niches and ways of living that hadn't existed before. The impact of the Cambrian explosion cannot be overstated. It established the basic body plans that would characterize animal life for the next 500 million years. Almost all modern animal phyla can trace their origins to this period. Think about it. The basic blueprint for everything from insects to humans was established during this remarkable time. But why did it happen then and not earlier or later? This remains one of the most debated questions in paleontology. Scientists have proposed various triggers, including environmental changes, increased oxygen levels, the development of new genes, and even the evolution of predation. The truth likely involves a combination of these factors, creating the perfect conditions for rapid evolution. The Cambrian explosion teaches us important lessons about evolution and life itself. It shows that when conditions are right, life can innovate and diversify at remarkable speeds. It demonstrates how biological innovation can trigger cascading effects throughout entire ecosystems. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that the history of life on Earth is not a steady, gradual process, but one marked by periods of revolutionary change. This period set the stage for all future animal evolution on Earth. The basic body plans and ecological relationships established during the Cambrian explosion continue to influence life today. When you look at any animal, from a butterfly to a whale, you're seeing the legacy of innovations that first appeared during this remarkable time in Earth's history. Understanding the Cambrian explosion helps us appreciate how complex life arose on our planet and reminds us that the diversity of life we see today is the result of billions of years of evolution, with certain key periods of rapid change shaping the course of life on Earth. Have you ever wondered how life made its remarkable journey from the oceans to dry land? This incredible transition, occurring roughly 450 to 400 million years ago, marks one of the most significant developments in Earth's history. Let's explore how organisms first conquered the challenging terrestrial environment. The story begins in the shallow waters near ancient shorelines. At this time, the oceans were teeming with life following the Cambrian explosion, but the land was largely barren. Why would any organism want to leave the supportive, nurturing environment of the ocean? The answer lies in opportunity. Vast untapped resources and absence of competition on land created an irresistible frontier for adaptation and evolution. The first pioneers were likely primitive plants, specifically ancestors of modern algae. These early plants, known as bryophytes, similar to today's mosses and liverworts, developed crucial adaptations to survive on land. They needed solutions for three major challenges: preventing water loss, supporting their bodies against gravity, and reproducing without water as a medium. To combat water loss, these early plants evolved a waxy coating called a cuticle, which helped retain moisture. They developed specialized pores called stomata, allowing them to exchange gases while minimizing water loss. Think of these adaptations like wearing a raincoat that keeps you dry but still lets you breathe. Supporting their bodies against gravity required the evolution of rigid cell walls strengthened with lignin, the same compound that makes modern wood sturdy. This development eventually led to the emergence of vascular plants, which could transport water and nutrients throughout their bodies through specialized tissues called xylem and phloem. But perhaps the most challenging adaptation was reproduction. In water, organisms could simply release their reproductive cells and let currents do the work. On land, new strategies were necessary. Early land plants developed alternating life cycles, producing both spores for reproduction and protective structures to shield their reproductive cells from drying out. As plants established themselves on land, they fundamentally transformed Earth's environment. Their root systems began breaking down rocks, creating the first soils. Through photosynthesis, they increased oxygen levels in the atmosphere and removed carbon dioxide, significantly affecting Earth's climate. These changes created conditions that would eventually support animal life on land. Speaking of animals, who were the first to make the leap? The earliest land animals were likely arthropods, ancestors of modern insects, spiders, and centipedes. These creatures already had external skeletons, exoskeletons, that helped prevent water loss and provided structural support. Evidence suggests that millipede-like organisms were among the first to venture onto land, followed by scorpion-like creatures. The transition to land required animals to develop new ways of breathing. Marine animals could extract oxygen from water using gills, but this wouldn't work in air. Early land animals evolved book lungs, still found in modern spiders, and tracheal systems, used by insects today, to breathe air directly. Movement also needed to change. Water's buoyancy had helped support marine animals' bodies, but on land, stronger muscles and more robust limbs were necessary. The first land animals likely scuttled along the ground, similar to modern beach hoppers or woodlice. Another crucial adaptation was the development of new sensory systems. Underwater sensors like lateral lines, used by fish to detect movement, were useless on land. Instead, animals evolved new ways to detect vibrations through the ground and developed better vision to see through air, which allows light to travel more effectively than water. The conquest of land wasn't a single event, but a gradual process that took millions of years. Some organisms, like lungfish, developed the ability to survive brief periods out of water, creating an intermediate stage between fully aquatic and terrestrial life. These transitional forms were crucial in understanding how the land conquest occurred. This movement onto land set the stage for an explosion of terrestrial biodiversity. The empty ecological niches of the land offered countless opportunities for specialization and adaptation. The plants and animals that successfully made this transition became the ancestors of most terrestrial life we see today. What started as a risky venture by a few hardy pioneers led to one of the most important evolutionary transitions in Earth's history. The adaptations developed during this period, from water conservation strategies to new modes of locomotion and breathing, continue to influence life on Earth today. The conquest of land demonstrates the remarkable adaptability of life and its ability to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges through gradual, incremental changes over millions of years. As we look at the lush forests, diverse insects, and countless other land organisms today, we're seeing the results of this ancient transition. The story of life's conquest of land reminds us that some of the most significant changes in Earth's history came from organisms taking the first tentative steps into new frontiers. Have you ever wondered how our lush green planet came to be? The story of how plants conquered the Earth's surface is one of the most remarkable transformations in our planet's history. Around 470 million years ago, the land was largely barren, a rocky, lifeless landscape. But something extraordinary was about to happen that would change everything. The first plants to venture onto land were small and simple. They evolved from green algae that lived in shallow waters, gradually developing the ability to survive brief periods out of water. But why leave the safety of the aquatic environment? The answer lies in opportunity. The vast, unexplored territory of dry land offered abundant sunlight and fewer competitors. These early land plants, known as bryophytes, similar to today's mosses and liverworts, faced enormous challenges. They needed to develop new ways to prevent water loss in the dry air, support themselves without water's buoyancy, transport water and nutrients throughout their tissues, reproduce without relying on water, anchor themselves to the ground, protect themselves from harmful UV radiation. One of the most crucial innovations was the development of a waxy coating called cuticle, which prevented the plants from drying out. Think of it as nature's first waterproof jacket. Another revolutionary adaptation was the evolution of stomata, tiny pores that could open and close, allowing plants to control gas exchange while minimizing water loss. But the real game changers were vascular tissues, specialized cells that formed tube-like structures throughout the plant. These vessels, called xylem and phloem, transported water and nutrients efficiently, allowing plants to grow taller and spread further inland. It's similar to how our modern cities rely on plumbing systems to distribute water. These ancient plants developed their own internal plumbing. Around 420 million years ago, plants evolved true roots, which revolutionized their ability to anchor themselves and extract nutrients from the soil. This was followed by the development of lignin, a tough compound that provided structural support and led to the evolution of wood. Can you imagine the impact? Plants could now grow taller than ever before, competing for sunlight in ways previously impossible. The Devonian period, 419 to 359 million years ago, witnessed an explosion of plant diversity and the emergence of the first forests. Massive plants like Archaeopteris grew up to 30 meters tall, creating the first tree canopies. These forests dramatically changed the planet's systems. 1. Atmosphere. Plants absorbed enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and released oxygen, significantly altering the atmosphere's composition. 2. Soil. Dead plant matter created the first true soils, enriching the ground with organic material. 3. Climate. Forests modified local and global climate patterns. 4. Water cycles. Plant roots affected erosion patterns and water distribution. 5. Biodiversity. The new forest habitats provided opportunities for animal life to diversify. The evolution of seeds was another revolutionary development. Unlike the spores of earlier plants, seeds contained a nutrient supply and protective coating, allowing plants to spread further and survive in more challenging environments. This innovation opened up new territories for plant colonization and led to even greater diversity. The Green Revolution had profound effects on animal life too. The oxygen-rich atmosphere supported the evolution of larger animals, while the complex forest environments provided new niches for species to occupy. The first forests became home to early insects, arachnids, and eventually early amphibians. This transformation of the Earth's surface also had long-lasting consequences for our planet's chemistry. Plants began what we now call the Great Oxidation Event 2.0, significantly increasing atmospheric oxygen levels. They also started removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, leading to global cooling, a process that would eventually result in the formation of coal deposits we mine today. But perhaps most remarkably, these ancient plants laid the groundwork for all terrestrial life as we know it. Without their pioneering adaptations and the environments they created, land animals, including humans, might never have evolved. The oxygen we breathe, the soils we farm, and the moderate climate we enjoy are all legacies of this green revolution. The story of plant colonization teaches us an important lesson about the power of adaptation and the interconnectedness of Earth's systems. What started with tiny moss-like plants venturing onto land culminated in a transformation that shaped our planet's destiny. Next time you walk through a forest or admire a garden, remember, you're witnessing the ongoing success story of one of Earth's greatest revolutions. This green revolution wasn't just a chapter in Earth's history, it was a fundamental transformation that made our world what it is today. And in many ways, the story continues as plants continue to adapt and evolve, facing new challenges in our changing world. What will be the next chapter in this remarkable story of Earth's green pioneers? Have you ever wondered what Earth was like before dinosaurs ruled the land? Picture a world where the largest and most successful animals weren't massive reptiles, but rather a group of creatures that would eventually give rise to modern insects, spiders, and crustaceans. Welcome to the age of arthropods, a fascinating period in Earth's history that shaped life as we know it today. Following the Green Revolution, where plants established themselves on land and created the first forests, a remarkable group of animals began to dominate terrestrial ecosystems. These were the arthropods, and their rise to power marks one of the most important transitions in the history of life on Earth. But what exactly are arthropods? They are animals with jointed legs, segmented bodies, and a hard external skeleton called an exoskeleton. Today, we know them as insects, spiders, scorpions, centipedes, millipedes, and crustaceans. During their initial rise to dominance, these creatures evolved numerous innovations that made them incredibly successful on land. The story begins around 420 million years ago, when the first arthropods began venturing onto land. These pioneers faced numerous challenges: how to breathe air instead of water, how to prevent water loss, how to move efficiently on solid ground, and how to reproduce in a terrestrial environment. Through evolutionary adaptations, they developed solutions to each of these challenges. One of the most significant developments was the tracheal system, a network of tiny tubes that carried air directly to their tissues. This efficient breathing system allowed arthropods to become active land dwellers and supported their high energy needs. Their hard exoskeleton, already present in their aquatic ancestors, proved perfectly suited for life on land as it prevented water loss and provided protection from predators. The Carboniferous period, roughly 359 to 299 million years ago, marked the golden age of early terrestrial arthropods. During this time, oxygen levels in the atmosphere were significantly higher than today, reaching up to 35% compared to our current 21%. These elevated oxygen levels allowed arthropods to grow to enormous sizes. Imagine dragonflies with wingspans of up to 65 centimeters, about 2 feet, and millipede-like creatures longer than a human adult. Among the most successful groups were the early insects. They developed a revolutionary adaptation that would change the course of their evolution forever: wings. The ability to fly gave insects unprecedented mobility, allowing them to escape predators, find food, and colonize new territories. This innovation helped make insects the most diverse group of animals on Earth, a title they still hold today, with over 1 million described species. Another crucial development during this period was the evolution of complete metamorphosis. Instead of simply growing larger through molting, many insects began to go through distinct life stages: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. This adaptation allowed different life stages to exploit different resources, reducing competition within species and enabling insects to occupy more ecological niches. The rise of arthropods had profound effects on Earth's ecosystems. As herbivores, they became important consumers of plant material, helping to cycle nutrients through the environment. As predators, they helped control population sizes of other organisms. Some species evolved to become the first pollinators, forming crucial partnerships with plants that continue to this day. These early arthropods also played a vital role in soil formation. Their burrowing activities helped aerate the soil and break down organic matter, while their waste products enriched the earth with nutrients. This process was essential for the continued development of terrestrial ecosystems and the evolution of more complex plant communities. The success of arthropods during this period laid the groundwork for the incredible diversity we see today. They established many of the fundamental ecological relationships that still exist in modern ecosystems: herbivory, predation, parasitism, and pollination. Their adaptations and innovations continue to influence life on Earth, making them one of the most successful groups of animals ever to exist. What's particularly fascinating is that many of the features that made arthropods successful hundreds of millions of years ago are the same ones that ensure their success today. Their segmented bodies provide flexibility and strength. Their jointed appendages allow precise movement and manipulation. Their exoskeletons protect them from predators and the environment. These characteristics have proven so effective that they've remained largely unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. The rise of arthropods teaches us important lessons about evolution and adaptation. It shows how solutions to environmental challenges, once discovered, can prove so successful that they persist for hundreds of millions of years. It demonstrates how innovations like flight and metamorphosis can lead to explosive diversification. And it reminds us that some of the most important actors in Earth's history weren't necessarily the largest or most powerful creatures, but rather the ones that could adapt most effectively to their environment and develop successful survival strategies. Today, as we observe the countless insects, spiders, and other arthropods in our gardens and forests, we're witnessing the legacy of this remarkable period in Earth's history. These creatures are not just survivors, they are the descendants of Earth's first great land dynasty, pioneers who helped shape the world we live in today. Have you ever wondered how our earliest vertebrate ancestors first emerged from the ancient seas? Let's dive deep into one of the most fascinating chapters of life's history: the story of how fish became the pioneers of the vertebrate family tree. Around 525 million years ago, during the Cambrian period, something remarkable was happening in Earth's oceans. While arthropods were busy conquering the land, the seas were witnessing the emergence of the first vertebrates, animals with backbones. But how did this revolutionary development come to be? The story begins with a small, humble creature called Pichia gracilis. This tiny, fish-like animal, barely 5 centimeters long, holds a special place in our evolutionary history. Why? Because Pichia was one of the earliest known chordates, animals with a notochord, a flexible rod-like structure that would eventually evolve into our backbone. Think of it as the prototype for all vertebrates that would follow, including us. But what made these early fish-like creatures so special? The answer lies in their innovations. The development of a notochord provided crucial internal support and allowed for more efficient movement through water. This was accompanied by another groundbreaking feature, a head with sensory organs. Can you imagine the advantage this gave these creatures in detecting food and avoiding predators? As we move forward in time, we encounter the ostracoderms, the first true fish. These peculiar creatures were like nothing alive today. They were jawless fish covered in heavy armor plates, looking somewhat like swimming tanks. The most well-known among them were the pteraspis and cephalaspis. These fish had already developed the basic blueprint that would be inherited by all later vertebrates: a brain, paired sensory organs, and a more complex nervous system. But perhaps the most significant development in fish evolution was the emergence of jaws. Around 440 million years ago, some fish developed hinged jaws from modified gill arches. This innovation was so successful that it led to an explosion of new fish species. Why were jaws such a game changer? They allowed fish to become active predators, to grab and process food more efficiently, and to protect themselves better. This adaptation was so successful that nearly all vertebrates today, except for lampreys and hagfish, have jaws. The next major players in our story were the placoderms, the first jawed vertebrates. These armored fish dominated the seas for about 70 million years, and some, like Dunkleosteus, grew to massive sizes. They were the top predators of their time, equipped with self-sharpening bone plates that functioned like scissors. As fish continued to evolve, two major groups emerged that would have profound implications for all future vertebrate life. The first were the cartilaginous fish, the ancestors of today's sharks, rays, and skates. These fish developed a skeleton made of cartilage rather than bone, and their success is evident in the fact that sharks have survived virtually unchanged for over 400 million years. The second group was the bony fish, which would eventually give rise to the vast majority of modern fish species and, surprisingly, to all land vertebrates. These fish developed true bones, a more flexible skeleton, and, crucially, lungs. Yes, you read that right, lungs. Early bony fish had both gills and primitive lungs, which survive today as the swim bladder in modern fish. This dual breathing system would later prove crucial for the conquest of land. One particularly important group of bony fish was the lobe-finned fish, including the coelacanth and lungfish. Their fins contained bones arranged in a pattern similar to the limbs of land animals. Why is this significant? Because these fish would eventually give rise to the first tetrapods, the ancestors of all amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. The fish chronicles represent more than just the story of fish. They tell the story of how our own basic body plan came to be. Every major vertebrate innovation, from our skull to our spinal cord, from our paired limbs to our internal organs, was first developed by these ancient fish. When you look in the mirror, you're seeing the legacy of 500 million years of fish evolution. As we close this chapter of Earth's history, we're left with an amazing realization. Fish didn't just dominate the ancient seas. They laid the groundwork for all vertebrate life on Earth. The next time you see a fish swimming in water, remember that you're looking at your very distant cousin, one that carries the basic blueprint that made our own existence possible. What makes this story even more remarkable is that we can still see these various stages of fish evolution in living species today. From the primitive lamprey to the cartilaginous sharks, from the ancient coelacanth to the modern teleost fish, each group tells part of this incredible story of innovation and adaptation. Have you ever wondered how animals first made the incredible journey from water to land? This remarkable transition marks one of the most significant events in the history of life on Earth, occurring approximately 370 million years ago during the Devonian period. Let's explore the fascinating story of how fish became the first amphibians. The journey began with a group of fish called lobe-finned fishes, specifically the tetrapodomorphs. These weren't your typical fish. They possessed unique features that would prove crucial for land invasion. But what made these fish so special? Their fins contained bones arranged in a pattern that would eventually evolve into the familiar arm and leg structure we see in land vertebrates today. One bone, followed by two bones, then several smaller bones, and finally digits. But why would fish want to leave their aquatic home in the first place? The answer lies in the environmental conditions of the Devonian period. This era saw the development of extensive shallow freshwater environments and swamps teeming with vegetation and invertebrate prey. These environments would occasionally dry up, creating a strong selective pressure for fish that could survive brief periods out of water. Those that could move between remaining pools had a significant advantage over their purely aquatic relatives. The first amphibians, known as tetrapods, meaning four-footed, developed several crucial adaptations that enabled them to survive on land. Let's examine these revolutionary changes. 1. Breathing adaptations. While fish relied solely on gills, early amphibians developed primitive lungs alongside their gills. This dual breathing system allowed them to extract oxygen both from water and air. The development of a more efficient respiratory system was essential for survival in oxygen-poor shallow waters and eventually on land. 2. Skeletal modifications. The transition to land required significant changes to the skeleton. The skull needed to support itself without the buoyancy of water, leading to stronger skull bones and a more rigid connection to the vertebral column. The shoulder girdle detached from the skull, allowing for more flexible head movement. 3. Limb development. Perhaps the most visible change was the evolution of paired limbs from fins. The earliest tetrapods, like Tiktaalik and Acanthostiga, show this transition beautifully. Their limbs developed strong bones and joints capable of supporting weight and enabling movement on land, though they were still primarily aquatic creatures. 4. Sensory adaptations. Life on land required new ways of sensing the environment. The lateral line system, useful for detecting movement in water, became less prominent. Meanwhile, the eyes and nose had to adapt to function in air rather than water, leading to the development of tear ducts and external nostrils. One of the most famous early amphibians was Ichthyostega, discovered in Greenland. This creature, about 1.5 meters long, showed an interesting mix of fish and amphibian features. It had legs and could probably drag itself across land, but its tail was still fish-like, and it likely spent most of its time in water. The development of eggs that could be laid in water but were protected by jelly-like coatings was another crucial innovation. Unlike fish eggs, which would dry out quickly in air, these new eggs could survive brief exposure to air while still requiring water for development. This dependency on water for reproduction remains a characteristic of modern amphibians. Early amphibians faced numerous challenges in their new terrestrial environment, preventing water loss through their skin, supporting their body weight against gravity, moving efficiently on land, breathing air, regulating body temperature without the moderating effect of water. These challenges led to continued evolution and diversification. Some groups became more terrestrial, while others remained primarily aquatic. This diversity of lifestyles is still reflected in modern amphibians. Compare a terrestrial toad to an aquatic axolotl, for instance. The success of these early amphibians paved the way for the further conquest of land by vertebrates. They were the ancestors of all subsequent land vertebrates, including reptiles, birds, and mammals. Without this crucial step in evolution, our own existence would not have been possible. The legacy of these pioneering vertebrates lives on in modern amphibians, which still show many of the transitional features of their ancient ancestors. Like their Devonian predecessors, most modern amphibians still need to return to water to reproduce, and many species go through an aquatic larval stage before developing into more terrestrial adults. Understanding this transition helps us appreciate the remarkable adaptability of life and the gradual nature of evolutionary change. The story of the first amphibians reminds us that some of the most significant evolutionary innovations arose from creatures making the best of challenging circumstances, ultimately leading to the incredible diversity of terrestrial life we see today. Let's embark on an incredible journey through one of Earth's most transformative periods, the Age of Reptiles. Have you ever wondered how these fascinating creatures came to dominate our planet long before mammals and birds took center stage? The story begins roughly 320 million years ago, marking a revolutionary chapter in Earth's history. Following the emergence of amphibians, reptiles evolved with several key adaptations that would forever change life on Earth. But what made reptiles so special? The answer lies in three crucial innovations that gave them a significant advantage over their amphibian ancestors. First, reptiles developed amniotic eggs, a true game-changer in vertebrate evolution. Unlike amphibian eggs that required water to survive, reptilian eggs contained their own liquid environment protected by a shell. This meant reptiles could lay their eggs on land, away from predator-filled waters. Think of it as nature's first portable life support system. The amniotic egg contained everything a developing embryo needed: food, water, and protection. The second major adaptation was their scaly, watertight skin. While amphibians needed to keep their skin moist, reptiles evolved scales that prevented water loss. This waterproof armor allowed them to venture far from water sources and explore drier environments. Have you noticed how modern lizards can thrive in desert conditions? This ability traces back to their ancient ancestors. The third crucial development was their more efficient respiratory and circulatory systems. Reptiles evolved a three-chambered heart. Some, like crocodilians, later developed four chambers and more sophisticated lungs. This improved their oxygen uptake and energy efficiency, enabling them to be more active and maintain higher metabolic rates than their predecessors. As reptiles spread across the landscape, they diversified into numerous forms. The early Permian period saw the rise of pelycosaurs, including the sail-backed dimetrodon, which, contrary to popular belief, wasn't actually a dinosaur but a distant ancestor of mammals. These creatures represented some of the first large land-dwelling vertebrate predators. The success of reptiles led to an extraordinary radiation of species. They split into several major groups: archosaurs, leading to crocodiles, dinosaurs, and eventually birds, lepidosaurs, lizards and snakes, and testudines, turtles and tortoises. Each group developed specialized features for different lifestyles. One fascinating aspect of reptilian evolution was their ability to occupy various ecological niches. Some returned to the seas, like the dolphin-like ichthyosaurs and long-necked plesiosaurs. Others took to the air, like the pterosaurs, the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight. On land, countless species evolved to fill roles as herbivores, carnivores, and everything in between. The diversity of reptilian body plans was remarkable. Consider the contrast between the massive, heavy-set herbivorous pariasaurs and the agile, predatory thecodonts. Some developed elaborate defensive features like the sail-backed Edaphosaurus, while others evolved into swift runners or efficient swimmers. This age also saw the emergence of the first ancestors of mammals, the therapsids. Though they're often overlooked, these mammal-like reptiles would eventually give rise to all modern mammals, including humans. Isn't it fascinating to think that our own ancestry traces back to this period? Climate played a crucial role in reptilian success. The Permian period was characterized by warming temperatures and increasing aridity, conditions that favored reptiles over amphibians. Their adaptations allowed them to thrive in these changing environments, while many amphibian species struggled. However, this age wasn't without its challenges. The end of the Permian period witnessed the most severe mass extinction in Earth's history, wiping out approximately 95% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species. Yet, some reptilian lineages survived, setting the stage for the age of dinosaurs that would follow. The legacy of the age of reptiles continues today. Modern reptiles, though less diverse than their ancient relatives, still showcase many of the adaptations that made their ancestors so successful. From the desert-dwelling Gila monster to the marine iguana of the Galapagos Islands, we can still observe the remarkable adaptability that characterized this important period in Earth's history. Understanding the age of reptiles helps us appreciate how evolutionary innovations can lead to dramatic changes in Earth's ecosystems. It reminds us that success in nature often comes not from being the biggest or strongest, but from developing adaptations that allow species to exploit new opportunities and survive changing conditions. The story of reptilian evolution also teaches us about the interconnectedness of life on Earth. Every major transition in our planet's history has built upon what came before, with each group of organisms contributing to the rich tapestry of life we see today. As we face modern environmental challenges, what lessons can we learn from these ancient survivors who dominated Earth for millions of years? The story of Earth's most devastating mass extinction event begins approximately 252 million years ago, marking the end of the Permian period and the beginning of the Triassic period. This catastrophic event, known scientifically as the Permian-Triassic extinction event and more commonly as the Great Dying, deserves its ominous nickname. But what made this particular extinction so devastating, and why should we care about an event that happened so long ago? Let's put the scale of this extinction into perspective. Imagine losing 95% of all marine species and about 70% of all terrestrial vertebrate species on Earth. That's not just a few species here and there, we're talking about the disappearance of entire families of organisms. This makes modern extinction rates seem modest in comparison. The Great Dying stands as the largest extinction event in Earth's 4.5 billion year history. What exactly happened during this catastrophic event? The extinction didn't occur overnight, but unfolded over an estimated 60,000 years, a mere blink of an eye in geological terms. The world that had been dominated by diverse reptilian species and flourishing marine life was about to change dramatically. But what triggered such a massive die-off? Scientists have identified several interconnected causes, with massive volcanic eruptions in present-day Siberia playing a central role. These weren't your typical volcanic eruptions. The Siberian traps, as they're called, released enormous amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Picture volcanic activity so extensive that it could cover an area larger than modern-day Europe with basalt rock. The consequences of these eruptions created a devastating chain reaction. First, the release of carbon dioxide and methane led to global warming on an unprecedented scale. Ocean temperatures rose by as much as 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Can you imagine what that kind of temperature increase would do to marine ecosystems today? In the Permian oceans, it was catastrophic. But the warming wasn't the only problem. The oceans became increasingly acidic as they absorbed more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. This acidification made it difficult or impossible for marine organisms to build their shells and skeletal structures. Additionally, the warmer waters held less dissolved oxygen, creating vast dead zones where few organisms could survive. On land, the situation was equally dire. The increased temperatures and changes in precipitation patterns led to widespread drought and soil erosion. Many plant species couldn't adapt quickly enough to the rapidly changing conditions. As the plants died off, the herbivorous animals that depended on them for food also perished, followed by their predators. It was a classic example of ecosystem collapse. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Great Dying is how it changed the rules of survival. Before the extinction, the dominant land animals were synapsids, our distant ancestors and relatives of modern mammals. After the extinction, the surviving archosaurs, ancestors of dinosaurs, birds, and crocodilians, became the dominant land animals. This shift would set the stage for the age of dinosaurs that would follow. The extinction also had profound effects on evolution. The few species that survived became the ancestors of many modern groups of organisms. Think of it as an evolutionary bottleneck. Only a small number of species made it through, but their descendants would eventually diversify to fill the countless empty niches left behind by the extinct species. What makes the Great Dying particularly relevant today? It serves as a sobering example of how changes in atmospheric composition can trigger global environmental catastrophes. The parallels to modern climate change are hard to ignore. While the scale and speed of the current changes are different, studying the Great Dying helps scientists understand how Earth's systems respond to rapid environmental changes. The recovery from the Great Dying was remarkably slow. It took Earth's ecosystems about 10 million years to recover their previous levels of biodiversity. This long recovery period highlights an important lesson. While life as a whole is resilient, individual species and ecosystems can be incredibly vulnerable to rapid environmental changes. The Great Dying also teaches us about the interconnectedness of Earth's systems. Changes in one area, like atmospheric composition, can trigger cascading effects throughout the planet's oceans, climate, and ecosystems. It's a reminder that global environmental changes rarely occur in isolation. As we reflect on this ancient catastrophe, we might wonder, what made some species more likely to survive than others? The survivors tended to be generalists, species that could tolerate a wide range of conditions and weren't too specialized in their diets or habitats. They were also often species that could burrow underground or had other ways to shelter from the harsh conditions. The Great Dying stands as a testament to both the fragility and resilience of life on Earth. While it represents the most severe crisis life has faced on our planet, it also demonstrates that life can recover and diversify even after the most catastrophic events. However, the long recovery time serves as a warning about the long-term consequences of rapid environmental changes. Have you ever wondered how Earth's most magnificent creatures came to rule our planet? The story of dinosaurs' rise to dominance is one of the most fascinating chapters in Earth's history, spanning millions of years and showcasing an incredible transformation of life on our planet. The rise of dinosaurs began approximately 245 million years ago during the Triassic period. But they didn't appear suddenly. Their emergence was a gradual process that followed one of Earth's most devastating mass extinctions, the Permian-Triassic extinction event, which wiped out about 90% of all species on Earth. This catastrophic event actually created the opportunity for dinosaurs to evolve and thrive. The first dinosaurs were relatively small, agile creatures, quite different from the massive beings we often imagine. These early dinosaurs, like Euraptor and Herosaurus, were about the size of a large dog and walked on two legs. They shared their world with many other reptilian groups, including the ancestors of crocodiles and various other archosaurs. What made dinosaurs special was their unique set of adaptations that would eventually lead to their dominance. One of the key advantages dinosaurs possessed was their upright posture. Unlike their contemporaries who had sprawling limbs, like modern lizards, dinosaurs developed legs that were positioned directly under their bodies. This seemingly simple change was revolutionary. It allowed for more efficient movement, better breathing, and improved endurance. Think about it. How much easier is it to run when your legs are straight under you rather than splayed out to the sides? The success of dinosaurs wasn't immediate. Throughout the late Triassic period, about 237 to 201 million years ago, they gradually became more diverse and widespread. But another major extinction event at the end of the Triassic proved to be the turning point. While this extinction wiped out many competing reptilian groups, dinosaurs survived and seized the opportunity to expand into vacant ecological niches. The early Jurassic period, 201 to 174 million years ago, marked the true beginning of dinosaur dominance. This is when we start seeing the development of the classic dinosaur body plans that would persist for millions of years. The first long-necked sauropods appeared, beginning their journey toward becoming the largest land animals that ever lived. Can you imagine the first time these creatures began to stretch their necks toward the treetops, discovering a whole new food source that no other animal could reach? Dinosaurs developed incredible adaptations during their rise to dominance. They evolved different tooth types for different diets: sharp, serrated teeth for meat eaters and flat, crushing teeth for plant eaters. Their bodies developed various sizes and shapes, allowing them to fill virtually every ecological niche available on land. Some became massive plant eaters like Plateosaurus, while others evolved into swift predators like Colaphysis. One of the most significant developments during this time was the evolution of different hip structures, leading to the two main dinosaur groups: the Saurischians, lizard-hipped, and Ornithischians, bird-hipped. This division would shape dinosaur evolution for the rest of their reign. The rise of dinosaurs also saw the development of various social behaviors. Evidence suggests that some species lived in herds, providing protection from predators and better chances of survival for their young. Others may have been territorial, competing for resources and mates. These social dynamics helped drive their evolution and success. By the Middle Jurassic period, 174 to 163 million years ago, dinosaurs had become the undisputed rulers of the land. They had evolved into an incredible variety of forms, from tiny chicken-sized creatures to massive giants weighing many tons. Their success was so complete that they dominated terrestrial ecosystems for over 160 million years. What made this rise to dominance even more remarkable was the dinosaurs' ability to adapt to changing environments. As the continents shifted and climates changed, dinosaurs evolved new features and behaviors to survive. They developed different strategies for thermoregulation, various defensive mechanisms, and diverse reproductive strategies. The rise of dinosaurs also had profound effects on other life forms. Plants evolved new features in response to dinosaur herbivory, developing different defensive mechanisms and growth patterns. Small mammals, which would eventually give rise to our own species, had to adapt to living in a world dominated by dinosaurs, often becoming nocturnal to avoid competition and predation. This remarkable story of the dinosaurs' rise teaches us important lessons about evolution and adaptation. It shows how major environmental changes can create opportunities for new groups to emerge and thrive. It demonstrates the importance of key innovations, like upright posture, in driving evolutionary success. And it reminds us that dominance in nature is never guaranteed, as even the mighty dinosaurs would eventually face their own extinction event. The rise of dinosaurs marked the beginning of one of the most spectacular periods in Earth's history, setting the stage for an era of giants that would capture human imagination millions of years later. What other secrets might these remarkable creatures still hold? What other lessons can we learn from their incredible journey to dominance? Have you ever looked up at birds soaring through the sky and wondered how flight first began? The story of how creatures conquered the skies is one of the most fascinating chapters in Earth's history. Let's explore how the first flying creatures emerged and revolutionized life on our planet. The journey to flight didn't happen overnight. It began around 300 million years ago when insects became the first organisms to achieve powered flight. But how did they do it? These early pioneers developed wings from extensions of their exoskeleton, similar to how modern insects have their wings today. The first flying insects were quite different from what we see now. Imagine giant dragonfly-like creatures called meganeura, with wingspans reaching up to 65 centimeters. But insects weren't the only ones yearning to take to the skies. During the Triassic period, around 225 million years ago, a group of reptiles called pterosaurs developed the ability to fly. These weren't dinosaurs, though many people mistake them for such. Pterosaurs were the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight, and they did it in a completely different way from insects. How did pterosaurs manage this remarkable feat? They evolved a wing membrane called the patagium, stretched between an elongated fourth finger and their bodies. This membrane was supported by strong muscle fibers and was covered in tiny fibers called actinofibrils, which gave the wing strength and shape. Unlike bird wings, which are made primarily of feathers, pterosaur wings were more like leather kites. The earliest pterosaurs were relatively small, like Priondactylus, with a wingspan of about 45 centimeters. But as they evolved, some species grew to enormous sizes. Quetzalcoatlus, one of the largest flying creatures ever, had a wingspan of up to 11 meters, as big as a small airplane. While pterosaurs were ruling the skies, another revolutionary development was taking place. Some dinosaurs were developing feathers, which would eventually lead to the evolution of birds. The most famous of these transitional creatures is Archaeopteryx, which lived about 150 million years ago. What made Archaeopteryx so special? It had features of both dinosaurs and birds. Teeth, a long bony tail, and clawed fingers like its dinosaur ancestors, but also wings and feathers like modern birds. But why did feathers evolve in the first place? Contrary to what many might think, feathers didn't initially evolve for flight. They'd first appeared as insulation to keep dinosaurs warm. Over time, some dinosaurs developed more complex feathers that could be used for display, and eventually, these feathers became suitable for gliding and then powered flight. The development of flight brought about massive changes in ecosystems. Flying creatures could access new food sources that ground-dwelling animals couldn't reach, escape predators more effectively, colonize new territories more easily, develop new hunting strategies, create nests in safer locations. These advantages led to an explosion of flying species. Different groups developed different flight strategies. Pterosaurs used their membrane wings for efficient soaring, while early birds like Archaeopteryx probably relied more on short bursts of powered flight. Insects developed incredibly maneuverable flight, able to hover, fly backward, and make sharp turns. The ability to fly also influenced the evolution of other features. Flying creatures needed lightweight bones, powerful chest muscles, enhanced vision, efficient respiratory systems, improved balance, and coordination. These adaptations were crucial for survival in the three-dimensional environment of the air. The development of flight was so successful that it has evolved independently multiple times throughout Earth's history, in insects, pterosaurs, birds, and even mammals, bats, much later. The impact of flight on Earth's ecosystems cannot be overstated. Flying creatures became crucial pollinators, helping plants spread and diversify. They became important predators, controlling populations of other animals. They also became prey themselves, leading to new evolutionary arms races between predators and prey. What makes this period so remarkable is that it represents one of the most significant innovations in the history of life. Flight opened up an entirely new habitat, the sky, and led to countless adaptations and evolutionary innovations that we still see today. The legacy of these early flying creatures continues in modern times. When we see a hummingbird hovering at a flower or an eagle soaring on thermal currents, We're witnessing the result of hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary refinement that began during this crucial period. Understanding how flight evolved helps us appreciate the complexity and ingenuity of nature's solutions to challenges. It also reminds us that major evolutionary innovations often begin with small steps, from simple gliding to the masterful flight abilities we see in modern birds and insects. What's particularly fascinating is how these different groups solved the challenge of flight in different ways. Insects with their rigid wings, pterosaurs with their membrane wings, and birds with their feathered wings all conquered the same environment using different approaches. This demonstrates a fundamental principle in evolution: there can be multiple successful solutions to the same challenge. Have you ever wondered why our world is filled with such beautiful, colorful flowers? The story of how flowers came to dominate our planet is one of the most remarkable transformations in Earth's history. Let's explore how these amazing plants changed everything about life on land. Around 135 million years ago, during the age of dinosaurs, something revolutionary happened. The first flowering plants, or angiosperms, appeared. But what made these plants so special? Unlike their predecessors like ferns and conifers, flowering plants had developed an ingenious way to reproduce that would forever change the face of our planet. The secret weapon of flowering plants was their flowers, complex reproductive structures that contained both male and female parts. These weren't just pretty decorations, they were highly efficient reproduction machines. The male parts produced pollen, while the female parts contained ovules that would eventually become seeds. But here's where it gets interesting. How would the pollen reach the ovules? This is where one of the most successful partnerships in nature's history began. Flowers evolved bright colors, sweet nectar, and alluring scents to attract insects and other animals. These creatures would unknowingly carry pollen from one flower to another as they fed, becoming the world's first pollinators. Think about it. Before this, plants relied mainly on wind to spread their pollen, which was far less efficient. But flowering plants didn't stop there. They developed another game-changing innovation: fruits. When seeds developed inside a nutritious, colorful fruit, animals would eat them and spread the seeds through their droppings, often far from the parent plant. This new method of seed dispersal allowed flowering plants to spread rapidly across the globe. The success of flowering plants was unprecedented. They diversified explosively, developing countless variations in size, shape, and adaptation, from tiny water lilies to massive trees, from desert cacti to tropical orchids. Flowering plants conquered almost every habitat on Earth. Today, they make up about 90% of all plant species on land. This revolution had far-reaching effects on the entire planet. The relationship between flowers and pollinators led to the evolution of countless new species of insects, especially bees and butterflies. Birds and mammals also evolved alongside flowering plants, developing specialized features to feed on fruits and nectar. The world became more colorful, more fragrant, and more interconnected than ever before. The rise of flowering plants also changed the very soil beneath our feet. Their efficient root systems and fallen leaves enriched the soil with nutrients, creating new opportunities for other organisms. Forests became more diverse, and new ecosystems emerged. Think about how different our world would be without flowering plants. There would be no apples, roses, or oak trees, no coffee, chocolate, or wheat. Most of our food crops are flowering plants, and they'd form the foundation of most terrestrial food webs. But perhaps most importantly, flowering plants created new possibilities for life itself. Their ability to form complex relationships with other organisms showed how cooperation, rather than just competition, could drive evolution. They demonstrated that sometimes the most successful strategies in nature involve working together. The story of flowering plants continues today. They're still evolving, still forming new relationships with other species, and still surprising us with their adaptability. Every spring, when flowers bloom around us, we're witnessing the ongoing success of one of evolution's most remarkable innovations. Looking at a flower today, it's amazing to think about the long journey that led to its existence. Each petal, each scent, each color is the result of millions of years of evolution, fine-tuned through countless generations. The next time you see a flower, remember that you're looking at one of the most successful life forms on Earth, one that literally changed the world. As we continue to face environmental challenges today, flowering plants remind us of nature's resilience and adaptability. They show us how a single innovation can transform an entire planet and how the relationships between different species can create something greater than the sum of its parts. The story of flowering plants is far from over. They continue to adapt to new conditions, form new relationships, and surprise us with their diversity. In many ways, they're still blooming, still changing, still shaping the world around us, just as they have been doing for the past 135 million years. What new chapters will be added to this remarkable story? How will flowering plants adapt to our changing world? These questions remind us that evolution is an ongoing process and that the natural world is constantly writing new chapters in its endless story of life. Have you ever wondered about our distant ancestors and how they survived in a world dominated by dinosaurs? Let's explore the fascinating story of how mammals first emerged and developed, setting the stage for an evolutionary journey that would eventually lead to us. The emergence of mammals is a remarkable tale that begins around 225 million years ago during the Triassic period. At this time, our ancestors were small, furry creatures that would hardly be recognized as the diverse group of animals we know today. These early mammals evolved from a group of reptiles called cynodonts, which were part of a larger group known as the synapsids. What made these early mammals different from their reptilian relatives? The key features that set them apart were truly revolutionary. First and foremost was the development of hair or fur, which provided insulation and helped maintain a constant body temperature. This was a crucial adaptation that would later prove invaluable for survival. Think about it, the ability to maintain a stable body temperature regardless of external conditions was a game-changing innovation in the history of life. Another significant development was the evolution of specialized teeth. Unlike reptiles, which generally have simple, uniform teeth, mammals developed different types of teeth for different purposes: incisors for cutting, canines for tearing, and molars for grinding. This dental diversity allowed early mammals to exploit various food sources and would later prove to be a crucial advantage in their evolution. But perhaps one of the most important innovations was the development of the middle ear bones. Did you know that some of the bones that were once part of the reptilian jaw evolved to become the tiny bones in our middle ear? This transformation led to improved hearing, which was essential for survival in a world where being alert to danger was crucial. The early mammals also developed more complex brains than their reptilian ancestors. This increased brain capacity, combined with improved senses, allowed them to process information more effectively and respond to their environment in more sophisticated ways. However, life wasn't easy for these early mammals. During most of the Mesozoic era, the age of dinosaurs, mammals remained relatively small and primarily nocturnal. Why? Because dinosaurs dominated the daytime ecological niches. Most early mammals were probably no larger than modern-day shrews or mice, and they had to find ways to survive in the shadow of their much larger reptilian contemporaries. This period of living in the dinosaur's shadow, however, drove several important adaptations. The nocturnal lifestyle led to the evolution of excellent night vision and keen senses of smell and hearing. Many early mammals became insectivores, feeding on the abundant insects that were active at night. Some developed the ability to climb trees, while others became proficient diggers, finding safety underground. One of the most revolutionary developments in early mammal evolution was the ability to produce milk and nurse their young. This provided a significant advantage over reptiles as it allowed for extended parental care and better survival rates for offspring. Can you imagine how this simple but profound innovation would change the course of evolution? Early mammals also developed a four-chambered heart and a more efficient respiratory system, allowing for better oxygen utilization and higher metabolic rates. This meant they could be more active and maintain higher body temperatures than their reptilian counterparts. The diversity of early mammals was surprisingly rich, even though they were living in the dinosaur's shadow. There were the morganocodontids, small insectivores that looked similar to modern shrews. The multituberculates, which survived for over 100 million years, were among the most successful early mammals, resembling modern rodents in many ways. The docodonts developed specialized teeth for crushing and grinding, allowing them to exploit new food sources. Despite their relatively small size and restricted ecological roles, these early mammals were laying the groundwork for an extraordinary evolutionary explosion that would occur after the extinction of the dinosaurs. They were developing the key adaptations: warm-bloodedness, complex brains, specialized teeth, and maternal care that would later prove crucial for their descendants' success. The story of early mammals is a testament to the power of evolutionary adaptation and the importance of finding specialized niches in a challenging environment. These small furry creatures, living in the shadow of dinosaurs, carried within them the potential for an incredible diversity of life forms that would eventually include everything from tiny bats to massive whales, from swift cheetahs to intelligent primates, and ultimately, to us. What makes this story particularly relevant is that it reminds us how seemingly insignificant creatures can harbor the potential for extraordinary evolutionary innovation. The early mammals, despite their small size and limited ecological roles, possessed the key adaptations that would eventually lead to the development of some of the most successful and diverse groups of animals on Earth. As we reflect on this crucial period in Earth's history, we might ask ourselves, what would life be like today if these early mammals hadn't developed these crucial adaptations? How different might our world be if they hadn't survived and thrived in the shadow of the dinosaurs? These questions remind us of the remarkable journey that led to our own existence and the incredible story of life on Earth. As we reach the culmination of our epic journey through time, spanning over 500 million years of life on Earth, let's reflect on the remarkable story that has unfolded. Have you ever wondered how we got from single-celled organisms to the incredible diversity of life we see today? The legacy of life on Earth is perhaps the most fascinating story ever told. Let's begin with the numbers. Scientists estimate that over 99% of all species that have ever existed are now extinct. Yet, today we have approximately 8.7 million species living on Earth. How did we arrive at this point? The answer lies in the continuous process of evolution, adaptation, and survival that we've explored throughout our journey. Remember how it all started in the ancient oceans. Single-celled organisms gave rise to multicellular life, leading to the Cambrian explosion where the first complex animals emerged. These early innovations in body plans and structures set the foundation for all animal life that would follow. The development of hard shells, segmented bodies, and bilateral symmetry, features we still see in many animals today, first appeared during this crucial period. The move from water to land was another pivotal moment in life's history. Plants were the pioneers, developing crucial adaptations like vascular systems and roots that would transform the planet's surface. They literally paved the way for animals to follow, creating new habitats and oxygen-rich environments. Think about it, every forest, grassland, and garden we see today exists because of these ancient plant innovations. The rise and fall of various dominant groups tells us something profound about life's resilience. When the dinosaurs ruled the Earth for over 160 million years, our mammalian ancestors were small, mostly nocturnal creatures. Yet, when circumstances changed dramatically with the asteroid impact 66 million years ago, these seemingly insignificant mammals survived and diversified into thousands of species, including humans. What makes this legacy truly remarkable is its interconnectedness. Every living thing today carries genetic information that has been passed down and modified over hundreds of millions of years. Did you know that humans share about 50% of their DNA with bananas? This fact perfectly illustrates how all life on Earth is related through an unbroken chain of inheritance stretching back to our earliest common ancestors. The legacy of life also teaches us about adaptation and survival. Throughout Earth's history, life has faced numerous mass extinctions and environmental challenges. Each time, some species survived and evolved, demonstrating remarkable adaptability. The oxygen crisis, global ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts. Life has persisted through all these challenges, each time emerging with new forms and innovations. Looking at the bigger picture, we can identify several key innovations that have shaped life as we know it today. 1. The development of photosynthesis, which transformed Earth's atmosphere. 2. The evolution of sexual reproduction, increasing genetic diversity. 3. The emergence of multicellularity, allowing for complex organisms. 4. The development of hard body parts, enabling better survival and fossilization. 5. The conquest of land by both plants and animals. 6. The evolution of flight, which has evolved independently multiple times. 7. The development of intelligence and complex social behaviors. The legacy of life also includes the intricate web of relationships between species, the ecosystems that have developed over millions of years. Today's coral reefs, rainforests, and grasslands are the result of countless interactions and adaptations between species. Each organism plays a crucial role in maintaining these delicate balances. What's particularly fascinating is how life has not only adapted to Earth's conditions, but has also actively changed them. The oxygen we breathe is a product of photosynthetic organisms. The soil we use to grow food was created through the interaction of early plants, fungi, and microorganisms. Even the climate has been influenced by life processes over geological time. This legacy continues to influence our understanding of life and our place in it. The study of evolution helps us understand antibiotic resistance in bacteria, the development of new medical treatments, and how species might respond to climate change. It reminds us that we are part of an ongoing story that began billions of years ago. As we face current global challenges like climate change and biodiversity loss, understanding this legacy becomes more important than ever. The history of life shows us that change is constant and adaptation is key to survival. However, it also teaches us that major disruptions can have long-lasting consequences for Earth's ecosystems. The legacy of life is not just about the past, it's about the present and future too. Every species alive today is both an ancestor and a descendant, carrying forward genetic innovations from the past while adapting to present challenges. We are all part of this continuing story, this unbroken chain of life that stretches back over 3.5 billion years. What will be our contribution to this legacy? As the first species aware of its evolutionary history and capable of deliberately influencing the future of life on Earth, we have a unique responsibility. Understanding and appreciating this legacy of life can help us make better decisions about how to preserve and protect the incredible diversity of life that surrounds us.